So I fool with him every opportunity. It's still to today.
Of course.
I fool with him every opportunity I get. So I go up to him, and I'm kind of walking around his car, and I'm just looking at him, and he has that little Avery Johnson look.
Yeah, look at that. Look at that. Look young
so
fella.
he's just looking, right, exactly. So he's looking, and we call him 6, because that was his number.
Right.
I'm like, man, 6, like, you doing it big, ain't you? And this is his words, verbatim. Yep, AD, and I'm still with Jesus. I have not laughed that hard as long, but that is a reflection of him and the relationship that we were discussing, vertically and horizontally.
Right,
so that kind of encapsulate all that he truly is.
Yeah.
Love him.
Don't get it twisted.
Right.
Still
yep,
with Jesus.
that's right.
So mine is, again, Scott Brooks. And at the time, I did not know that, well, one, we had the same agent. And we're both in camp together. I didn't know guarantees. Again, I'm just coming in the league. I didn't know what guarantees meant. I didn't know he was already a shoe-in because I'd already counted him out. I'm kicking his behind. I'm kicking Curtis Blair, who's now an official. He was in camp with me. And, you got Kenny Smith and Akeem, and they're just running through, and they're throwing the ball off the backboard, doing what, not even trying. And so I'm doing the same thing. I'm following suit. And, of course, Scott Brooks, we all know, he played one speed, one hard speed, and he's running through like it's game-like. I mean, form, everything's locked in. He's landing high on the wind, and I'm saying, why is he doing all that? Oh, he's trying to impress the coaches, man. Nobody needs. Go ahead with all that. So after the layup line, he pulls me aside. Now, again, we got the same agent, but we also play in the same position.
Right.
And a lot of guys they feel threatened.
Right.
And he wasn't. He was kind of that guy hanging on, and his effort and energy is what kept him around, and he could knock down shots. So I could have been a threat. I'm young, I'm coming in, I'm athletic, and pulls me aside and he says, hey, you see all those guys over there? He's making $3 million, he's making $3.5 million, he's making $2 million. Those dudes got guaranteed contracts. You don't. He said, if you want to make this team, all that laughing and giggling, when you hit the floor, you need to come business ready to work. And I could have looked at him and thought, man, go ahead. But immediately it changed my whole perspective of my approach to the game. Now, I didn't make that Houston team, but best believe when I tried out with Jersey, when I tried out with Boston, anytime I was in that situation, I was now that guy. Even if I wasn't doing 90 to do a layup, I was making them all, and I was making sure that, and again, those little things, and I had great vets that had short stints in the league that I played with in the CBA, that, they were guys, Elston Turner, big influence on when I was in the CBA. Hey, guy, you're good, keeping my mind right, you're going to be fine. Steve Bardo, played with him in the CBA. He had been with Dallas. Those guys had been there, had an opportunity, saw what it was like, and was able to tell me, hey, look, when you get there, make sure you go hard. Make sure you're doing what you're doing. And that was the difference in me not just trying out, but me actually making it and then staying for a long time.
Valley Sports New Orleans, the new network of the Pelicans.
That's all for this edition of Pelicans Insider here on Valley Sports. Special thanks to David, AD, and our entire Insider crew, and of course to you for joining us here on Valley Sports. We'll see you next time for everything Pelicans basketball.
The New Orleans Pelicans home is Valley Sports New Orleans.
Are you kidding me?
New network, same home. We are the heart of the Pelicans and the heart of the fan.
Gives the Pelicans the lead.
Valley Sports New Orleans, the heart of your team. The heart of the Big Easy. Bally Sports New Orleans, the heart of the fan.
Let's get down to business. Give you one more
Zion on a quick move right by Jermichael Green.
Too strong. I'm too strong. DeRozan, 2. DeRozan hits it. Oh, mama!
Let's get down.
Zion, nice crossover. Hammer it home.
Jamal DeRozan with an emphatic dunk.
Had a million nights just like this. So let's get down to business.
It's a Saturday night edition of Pelicans Live as New Orleans is back at the Smoothie King Center after ending a 4-game losing streak, blasting the Orlando Magic 135-100 on Thursday. Brandon Ingram's big night against the Magic, keeping the Pelicans' play-in tournament hopes alive. The task at hand tonight, though, the Spurs, and one of the biggest tests to date. The Pelicans and Spurs splitting 2 previous meetings. The Pels hosting a Spurs team that has been impressive and efficient on the road this season. The question is, who will take the tiebreaker? It's Pelicans and Spurs on Bally Sports as we get you ready for tip-off. We welcome you into the Bally Sports studio for this edition of Pelicans Live, presented by FanDuel. I am Katie Engelson. The Pelicans taking on a Spurs team that they are chasing for a spot in the play-in tournament. The Spurs with a 3.5-game lead over the Pelicans. And now time to welcome in David Wesley, who joins us from the Smoothie King Center in New Orleans. David, good to see you. Happy Saturday.
Good to see you.
The Pelicans head coach Stan Van Gundy emphasized post-game Thursday that every game from now on is a big one. Would you consider this matchup tonight against the Spurs as a must-win situation?
Well, specifically the teams that they're chasing and that are right there in that 9, 10 spot. Those are the teams that they're chasing. So the San Antonio Spurs, this is a must-win. You have to win these games. You have to find a way. You have to play harder, play at a better level. But, yes, I agree with Coach Van Gundy. These are must-win, and for the rest of the season, they will be must-win games if they plan to catch and get into that play-in game.
Time now to welcome in Antonio Daniels, who also joins us from the Smoothie King Center in New Orleans. NAD, how would you describe the magnitude of this matchup?
Well, I think it's the biggest game of a lot of these guys' careers. Obviously, Steven Adams has a ton of playoff experience. Eric Bledsoe has a lot of playoff experience. But that's about where it stops. If you go down the line, and if you look at Brandon Ingram and Zion and some of these other guys that are young, Lonzo Ball, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Kyra Lewis, these guys don't have playoff experience. So what I would consider as far as the regular season goes, and this is why I'm a huge fan of the playing game, because it makes these games meaningful. Whether or not you get in or not, these games are meaningful as far as playoff atmosphere type games. This is the biggest game of a lot of these guys' young careers.
As you mentioned, the Pelicans, they have got to play meaningful basketball. Let's take a glance now at the Western Conference standing and the strength of schedule for these teams. The Pelicans with 3 games against Golden State down the stretch. David, your thoughts when looking at the standings?
Yeah, it's a tough uphill climb, and you heard Coach Van Gundy talk about that as well. You know, they have to almost play it perfect, but they certainly have to win the Spurs game and the 3 against the Warriors if they want to climb back into this. But it's all about their approach. If they come in and they believe it and they play at that level we've seen them play, then they should get there. They'll give themselves every chance. But if they come in here and they have some up and down games, those are games that's going to cost them from getting in.
And I agree with that. See, the thing is, I think of must win. I take that differently, because for me, must win has always meant I've always taken must win as a literal term, which means if we don't win, we're going home, as far as the playoffs are concerned. And the fact of the matter is, if this game is huge, I don't think any of us would doubt that. But is this a must win basketball game? Again, I'll stress how the magnitude of this game. I'll stress how meaningful it is, but it's not a must-win just because of the amount of games that are still left on the schedule. It's huge because it's a one-game swing either way, and what this does, if you do lose this basketball game, is now you are taking your own destiny out of your hands and you're placing it in someone else's hands. Now you need help a lot along the way. So winning this game is important because you want to put yourself in the best position possible by taking care of your business and not having to rely on anyone else.
But AD, while I gather you're talking more like NCAA must win, one and done. If you lose, you go home.
Right.
Wouldn't you consider some of these games right now, especially when you're playing sub-500s or ones closer to your record, specifically the Spurs and Golden State, who are right in front of you, wouldn't you consider those games specifically must win?
Now, see, that's what I'm saying. Like, must win. Like, if this was the last week of the season, yeah. But the fact that you know, Golden State may still have 13 games left. We know, and you know this better than anyone else did, how quickly things change. You know, we see different teams right now that are dealing with injuries, that are dealing with so many different things. There's still I won't say a good amount of time left. There's still adequate time left. But you should approach this game as a player. See, now I'm thinking like an analyst. And I'm not thinking like a player. As a player, I would approach this as a must-win game. As an analyst, I can sit back, I can scoreboard watch, I can look ahead, I can see who Golden State has remaining, I can see who San Antonio still has remaining, I can see who we still have remaining. But as a player, I would definitely approach this game with a must-win mentality.
Well, continuing on the topic of playing meaningful basketball, they played meaningful basketball against the Magic on Thursday. In fact, the starters did not have to play in that fourth quarter. How beneficial was it for the Pelican starters that they were able to rest? David.
Well, I think it was very important. Again, this is a jam-packed season. Games are coming really fast, and every team needs one of those blowout situations where they're sitting on the bench in the fourth quarter, they're getting their rest. Some players know they're not going back in. They'll have the ice on their knees and already start that process. So those are always fun and definitely needed. This team has been asked to do a lot in a short amount of time. So a lot of games, get that rest, recuperate, and try to go for this last run, these last 14 games.
And in a condensed season where the games are coming fast and furious, any opportunity that you have to get rest, you have to use it. And the fact that you only had one guy that played above 25 minutes, and that was Brandon Ingram, who played 29 minutes, is fantastic. Because, you know, right before this, a little while back, this same Pelicans team that we're talking about that needed rest, or that could use the rest against Orlando, played 8 games in 12 days. So, again, these games will come fast and furious. Any chance that you get as far as rest is concerned, you have to take advantage of it because these games don't get easier. And you're going to need maybe some guys to stretch these minutes out. Maybe guys are playing 30 or 32 minutes per game for the season. Maybe you may up that to 36, 37, or 38 minutes because of how meaningful these games are down the stretch.
Well, switching gears for the San Antonio Spurs, DeMar DeRozan is expected to play tonight. He did not play against the Pistons in the Spurs last game. He is shooting nearly 50% from the field. What do the Pelicans need to do to get him out of a rhythm? David.
Well, the Pelicans need to be able to guard him one-on-one. He's a good mid-range player. He's going to post. He's going to play big. So they're going to have to, first, individually, somebody's got to take up that challenge to guard him, to try to get him stopped by themselves. Then the other players need to know that he is most dangerous. He is the guy we have to guard. Now, you see his career high assists, so he doesn't have any problem getting the ball around to his teammates. Also, if you foul him, he gets to the free throw line, he's shooting 89%. So you can't foul him, you can't put him on the line, but you have to find a guy on this team that says, you know what, I'm going to do everything I can to get him stopped, and then make sure the team is locked in, have defensive integrity, and willing to help and come over and get the job done. But he's going to go out and get buckets. You got to make him work for him.
And KYP means know your personnel. And I say that to say this. DeMar DeRozan is a heck of a scorer. You look at what he did against the New Orleans Pelicans last time they met, 32-11. But you have to understand, 91% of his field goal attempts are from 2. So you have to understand what he does well and try and take away what he does well. Again, this is the NBA. Guys are skilled, guys are really good, and the guys are great shot makers. He's their closer. He's their facilitator. So as much as you possibly can, you need to approach playing against DeMar DeRozan the same way you approach playing against a Damian Lillard or a Steph Curry or anybody else who is backcourt strong, and a lot of what they do revolves around that guy. So he's their leading scorer, 1, and their leading facilitator, 2, and he's their closer, 3. So I agree with David. Somebody individually has to take the challenge to say, look, I may not be what I am offensively tonight, but I'm going to try and cut your water off early, DeMar. I'm going to try. But you also have to understand, and there has to be a defensive game plan that is put in place to cut down his effectiveness.
But also, to your point, AD, you talking about knowing your personnel. This is not a three-point shooting team. They're good at shooting threes,
right.
but they're not volume shooters. And therefore, you have to know who you're guarding on the perimeter. How you're going to help on DeRozan depends on who you're guarding. You have to know that.
Right.
You either have to stay close to the shooters or you need to be helping more and bring it in closer to the paint. But you have to know that. You can't chase everybody over. You can't chase everybody under. You have to know your personnel, and that's going to help you, 1, guard DeRozan, but also guard the rest of the guys on this team.
DeMar DeRozan
Agreed.
dropping 32 points the last time these two teams met in February. Antonio, as always, thank you so much for your insight. We look forward to hearing you on the call with Joel and Jen.
Thank you.
Well, coming up on the other side of the break, AD and David Wesley will bring you inside the locker room for their thoughts on the play-in tournament. Don't go anywhere. Pelicans Live continues after this. Pelicans Live on Bally Sports is brought to you by Smoothie King, Rule the Day, by Chevron, the Human Energy Company, by Entergy, we power life, and by FanDuel, more ways to win.
Do I have your attention?
Your favorite team has a new network. Bally Sports New Orleans.
This is the moment.
In regards to the play-in tournament, David Wesley and Antonio Daniels are bringing you inside the locker room for their thoughts on the league's play-in tournament.
New situation in the NBA now is the play-in. The 7, 8, 9, 10 positions get a chance to play in to the playoffs. Now, even though 7 and 8 were already before in the playoffs, now they're playing for their playoff lives, and it immediately draws my attention to a team like Dallas, who's 6 or 7 games over 500, and now they got to prove themselves to play in the playoffs. What say you, Mr. Daniels?
Initially, my initial thought was, all right,
stupid.
you know, the NBA trying to do too much.
Right.
That was my initial thought. Now, and I'm going to be honest, and I know this is going to be hard for people to understand. It has nothing to do with where the Pelicans sit.
Right.
It really doesn't. I would be saying the same thing if they were in 6th, or if they were in 5th, they were in 4th. For me now, it's more about the evolution of the NBA as a whole.
Yeah.
You know, what teams are getting now and playing for is hope. And I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
Because at this time of the year, when you start talking about the last 10 to 15 games of the year, we've both been on really good teams, we've both been on really bad teams. There's a drastic difference in as far as mentality goes when you're on a bad team. You done sent your car home already. You done made your vacation plans already. You are so concerned with the off season. Now, when you are in 9 and 10, where you regularly would be worrying about the summer, now you're playing in meaningful basketball games. Every time that the Pelicans take the floor right now, every time that Sacramento or San Antonio or Golden State, they take the floor, this is a meaningful game. So you're not in the playoffs yet, but you are getting playoff-ish experience. Because every game you are playing right now matters. Everything is magnified. It's not magnified if you're in 10th place and you know you don't have a chance to get to that 8th spot.
You're 7 games back. You're like,
right, okay, well, the season's over. Ain't nobody tripping on it. Right now, when you have an opportunity to be in 11th place and these games still mean something, I'm all on board for that.
I like it too. I like the wrinkle. I like the added suspense, the possible almost NCAA-like.
Right.
You know, that team that thought they were in, now they have to play their way in, and they, you know, it's kind of it's a single game elimination. If the higher seed wins the first game, it's over. So you have to go out and play that. I know it's extra games. I know this is a condensed season, and for that, all of this is tough. But even when we get back to the 82 regular season, that's going to be very interesting because teams are, you know, with all the rest and everything, teams are trying to be fresh and all that going into the playoffs. And, you know, there's a lot of injuries that have affected this season, as well as the pandemic that's affected this season. But when you get to this play-in game, you know, hopefully these teams will be healthy. Hopefully, you know, a 10th place team has a chance. They find a way to beat the 7. Sorry for 7, but hey, that's the way it goes.
But you also know that this league is about matchups.
Yeah.
So if I am in 8, if I'm in 7, I'm not on board with this because just because you
have a better record.
Just because you have a better record doesn't mean that you're better than that team.
Right.
There are certain teams that have a better record that haven't beat the team that's behind them in 2+ years.
Right.
So what you're saying is, man, okay, we are 8 games over 500 or 9 games over 500, and this team is 2 spots behind
the Pelicans.
Right. This team is 2 spots behind us, and we haven't beat this team in 2 years. Like, no, we don't want that. I would rather keep it how it is now and play the Clippers or the Lakers or whoever it may be in the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah.
So I can kind of understand both sides, and you brought up a great point about it being a condensed season.
Yeah.
Playing every other day. And now basically what you're doing is teams that are ranked 7th and 8th, now what you're giving them more games in a condensed amount of days as well. So I understand both sides of the coin, but for me, I love the suspense of it all.
Yeah,
I love the fact that there's hope there. I love the fact that there are more teams that are playing meaningful basketball that means something now than there would be otherwise.
It's good for basketball. It's good for change, and you know everything about this league is a lot different than it was in the 90s, and the style of play and the type of players and the athleticism and the skill. It's just it's getting so much better. The NBA is in good shape.
For sure.
Well, we continue to get ready for tip-off right here on Bally Sports with our FanDuel Countdown. It's Pelicans and Spurs at the top of the hour right here on Bally Sports. Pelicans Live on Bally Sports is brought to you by Smoothie King. Rule the day. By Oshner, official healthcare provider of the New Orleans Pelicans. By Ibotta, cash back made easy.